Hey, Dr. Amber here. Today's episode is part of a 10-part series for my virtual book tour. Yes, I am going on tour virtually, and I'm having 10 amazing conversations with people that I know and I really admire around the topics of overwhelm, overstimulation, dysregulation, all in preparation for my new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, a practical framework for breaking the cycles of dysregulation and mastering emotions for parents and children. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This conversation I really enjoyed, and I think you'll get a lot out of it too. And also, don't forget to order your copy of the book. You can get it on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, literally wherever you buy books. Okay? Enjoy the episode, and we'll talk soon. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming. The book tour continues, virtual book tour with me, Dr. Amber, to help promote and celebrate the upcoming release of my new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. I'm going to be bringing on a very amazing guest. So hold on, y'all, because she's here. Give me a second. I think she's coming. Hold on.
What?
Hi. Hey. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm here.
Your curls are looking very good
All
today.
right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
This is a like old twist out, but honestly, those are the best ones for me. The old twist out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're looking so good. Like the locks, and then cut the hair, and then I'm loving it.
I'm trying to get my hair back. I miss. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Me too. You got to keep it professional though.
Okay.
Because I'm just gonna start chatting about.
I know everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll just find a time for us to.
Yeah, I must say, because it's not gonna be me staying on task. It's not my book, so that's your job. You know what I'm saying? So it's not gonna be me.
Hilarious. Oh my gosh. Well, everyone is here. I just saw someone. Hold on. Someone said I made a comment. Apparently someone that I went was when I was in Oakland. Now I've lost the comment, but hi, former colleague from West Coast Children's Clinic. Hi. That's a blast from the past. That's from 10 years ago. So, hi everyone. Let me get back on task. We are here. Let's orient a little bit. I'm sure that many of you know us, but maybe we'll do some introductions first. So I can go first. I'm Dr. Amber, clinical psychologist based in DC, and I am now author of this new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, which I am very excited about. The book will be here, released next week on Tuesday, y'all. June 18th. So excited. This has been a labor of love and just a amazing process getting this book out here and done. And I'm so excited for you all to be able to read through it. But now I want you to introduce yourself so we can go ahead and dive in.
Oh yeah. So my name is Dr. Raquel Martin. I am based in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a professor at Tennessee State University. I also have a private practice. And I focus on like Black identity development and anti-racist, anti-oppressive frameworks. I also have two toddlers, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and a husband and a dog. But parenting wise, I have two toddlers.
Oh yeah, you got a 5-year-old now. Yes, we'll have to talk about that too. How the 5 is treated. I'm enjoying 5 right now. I don't know about you, but 5
I
is
am
great.
not.
Oh,
No, I think it's so interesting. I was like when prepping for the call, and I was like, it's perfect timing because like it's been very tough for us with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So like I enjoy him as a person, but I've been really overstimulated and like very overstimulated. So like not with they're kind of going at it. Yeah.
I get it. No, I get it. And I just feel like and this is why we're talking about this. So we just dive right in. I feel like every parent will have a certain age range or like a season where they're just, you know, it's not your favorite season. And it was very much like 2 to 4 was just whew. And so I'm feeling like, okay, 5 is giving me like this, I can breathe a little bit more with my oldest, but I get it. And I think, so let me tell you why I wanted to talk to you about this
Mhm.
topic. So today, you all, we're going to be talking about emotional safety. And I think the title is Your Child's Emotional Safety Begins with Your Own Emotional Regulation. And
Yeah.
a while ago, I don't even know if you remember this piece of content because I know you have so much content, but a while ago, you did this reel, and it was basically about how I can't even remember, but it was something about how your children often don't come to you to talk to you or to tell you certain, not you, I'm just saying people in general. It was about the reason why someone's children may not come and share things with you is because
Yeah.
they are afraid of you. They're afraid of you.
Yeah.
And when you posted that, it resonated so much for me. And that's why I really wanted us to kind of expound on this topic because I see it like 2 different ways. And for me personally, it resonated one because, and I've talked about this before, I am someone who grew up feeling afraid of my parent, my father, unfortunately, because he had a really hard time managing his reactions. At times,
Hmm.
explosive. He could be very intimidating, very loving, loved me very much, but there was something about how he responded or reacted, especially when he was upset or discontent or frustrated, that just did not allow for me to feel safe and close to him.
Yeah.
But then well, I've told this story on here before. There was a moment when my oldest, I think he was like a young 2, maybe a young no, an old 2, maybe a young 3. He was playing with the plunger in the bathroom, and I was trying to make lunch and do all the things, and I was overwhelmed and overstimulated, and I realized he was playing with the plunger, and I flipped out because I was so, I don't know, whatever was going on for
Yeah.
me all made me lose my temper versus being able to, in the moment, just talk with him about, okay, this is what we are going to do instead. Let's wash our hands. Let's make sure we're clean, yada, yada. I couldn't do it because in the moment I was so dysregulated. And so what ended up happening instead is that I screamed at him, I yelled, and then once I was able to come to my senses, I realized he looked afraid. And that was a moment that I just never want to have again. I never want to have that feeling of my child being afraid of me in any moment because I'm yelling or screaming or whatever it is. And so it just made me think about that. I wish that I could have felt closer to my father, but also I want my children to always feel safe with me. And then for me, I think it begins with my ability to really know how to regulate my emotions, whether it's me being frustrated about something or dysregulated or overwhelmed or overstimulated. What do I, but then also we as parents, have to do to make sure that we are in a place where we are able to identify how we're feeling, being aware of how we're feeling, and then know what to do next so that it doesn't interfere with our relationship with our kids. So that was all that came to me from your piece of content. And then I was like, okay, I want to talk to her about this because I just feel like it's something that is important to talk about.
Yeah, and especially because I feel like we both work with all populations because you don't work with just adults and you don't work with just children. But also as like a professor, I'm teaching
Mm-hmm.
from undergrad to grad, and honestly, freshmen are just high school students. A lot of students are like afraid of their parents. I remember hearing this conversation of this student stating that like I would rather like somebody arrest me than call my parents and tell them that I was somewhere I said I wasn't going to
Wow.
be. And I'm at a HBCU, so I was just like, man, that's these kids like they're so afraid of your reaction that they would rather put themselves in a more dangerous situation or call you, and it's even more concerning because it's like we're supposed to be an aspect of safety for them. And I think there's a lot of times, I'm sorry, I was crocheting. I think there's a lot of times when people don't realize that their children may not see them as a safe space.
Right.
And it's hard to regulate yourself so that children, you have to regulate yourself so you can co-regulate them because a lot of people weren't taught that. I think a lot of parents also have unrealistic expectations for their children, and it's because unrealistic expectations were placed on them. Like, oh, my child should be able to sit down quietly. I was able to. You shouldn't have been able to, though, right? Like, because it was likely out of fear and stuff like that. So I feel like that's an issue. And then also there's so much that the world asks of us, right? Like we met off of I was following you for a minute, but C3 and Russell are like a couple weeks apart, because we were all pregnant at the same time, right? Ashley's in here too, so like we're all pregnant at the same time. And uh like 5 and 2, both of my boys have had like some type of like health issue, but like lately they've really been revving up, and I haven't gotten to a space to be able to even regulate myself. And I think it's also the fact that like there's so much stuff that's asked of us. It takes more for us to work. Like, you can't just be a psychologist. You're a psychologist and you're teaching, or you're also like having to be on social media to show that, you're still being able to reach as many people as possible, because if we're trying to reach a certain population, we have to be on social media. And I'm be honest, like I've never been more anxious in my life lately, and it's hard to like take a minute. So I think like the biggest thing is trying to figure out resources, and even just realizing that like I found that sometimes parents, particularly moms, think that they have to have like some, I don't know. Like I always feel like if you think it's going to take 2 hours to regulate yourself, or 2 hour, you're going to need a 2 hour break, then you'll never see the salience of a 15-minute break. I've even found that like even if you're with your kids, but if you're with your other parents, that takes the load off of you. A lot of people are like isolated, so I tell individuals like use community apps. Like there's like My Leak and Mamas, and I have a mental health community, Mind Your Mental, and finding things that way. And Facebook, although it's very old school, it is very much a community building app, like, and things like that. So I think a lot of times parents just need more help with the resources. And I totally understand that I always want to say privileged, but also like understanding like the work it takes to be healthy and happily married. Because sometimes people are like, that's a privilege. And I'd be like, I work for this. We work for this now.
It's work.
Now, let me tell you something. Like, nah, we be working on it. We work on ourselves, right? But even in that realm, I was also reared by a single parent. So like most of the things that I think of are things that would help like a single parent, or someone who what is it that we've talked about, default parenting, right? Like when it comes to default parenting, if you're in a relationship, one of the things that I always make sure I do is like we have a family calendar, and I'll make sure that like things are on the family calendar and contact information is on the family calendar. With Russell, the school was always calling me, and one time I asked them like, why do y'all keep calling me? Why are y'all only calling me? And they were like, you're the point of contact on the file. And I was like, we're actually both point of contacts on the file. So I was like, you can call my husband too. Or like the app on the phone where the teachers contact us. My husband ain't have it on his phone for the longest. I said, you better get a new phone and delete an app, honey, because they need to stop reaching me, right? Like, so I always feel like the regulation is not only, it's important not only to think about it like if you have a partner, because there are plenty of married single parents, but also like people who aren't married and things and resources, right? Like thinking about summer camps. There are free summer camps. Just trying to find a way to buy yourself time. And I'm also not one of those parents who doesn't believe in screen time. I think people need to use screen time more effectively. Yeah. For example, if you have the appropriate child locks on your TV, and you know that what they're watching, and they're watching TV for like 30 minutes, use that 30 minutes to step away. Like, why am I sitting here now? If it's Bluey, I'm already locked in. But if it's not Bluey, why am I sitting here watching TV with you when I can have 30 minutes of like not being spoken to? Like, I think there's also the fact that people need to utilize screen time more efficiently, right? Like, first of all, PBS Kids, top two, not number two. Like one of the entire network. Like I wish I had started off the boys, Russell, because Russ being like, you can use this app and you can watch anything on this app, because you can they have like a million shows and you can watch anything on it. But I think people need to also utilize screen time more effectively. I'm not about to be, I love you, but I'm not about to be sitting here watching TV with you. I get 30 minutes. I know you're not to be in my face. You're not about to be in my face. I'm going to sit down and like drink my tea hot or eat something. Like, I think there are other resources. There are plenty of free summer camps. There are, and my mom used to do this thing, we didn't have as much money, but like it used to be this thing where summer camps used to have like a week free.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a week or two free or whatever. And I never forget, like we went to, there's also like, there's a first aid camp. Red Cross used to do, that was free. Or Girl Scouts. We went to Girl Scout camp and we were on a scholarship. There was like, there would be like summer exploratory things. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, a lot of things cost money. But as someone who grew up on food stamps, I can get you some time. Like I am the plug. Russell's in this program called Promising Scholars, right? And it's for the month of June, but it's the same amount of time as school, but they learn about fun things. It's supposed to be a transition from pre-K to kindergarten. It's free.
Oh,
From 8 to like 3. It's free.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Because
And even like sports, like so say like you're taking them and you're getting up and you're doing basketball or some kind of sport, but even though you're there, you may still feel less pressure of like having them up on you 24/7 because they're hanging out with friends and you're networking and stuff like that. Like I think the key to being able to regulate yourself is find ways to buy yourself time and also acknowledge the fact that like this is hard, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that like sometimes, you know, when your child calls your name, you want to rip your face off. Like that's normal. It's exhausting. But if you don't admit what the issue is, you're never going to find ways to combat it. And I think one of the biggest ways is like using your resources wisely. And I'm not even from the aspect of like I'm a very privileged person who's, you know, married and have a career. And if I needed a sitter, I can afford it. But finding ways that you don't even need to do that. I think is one of the key things because a lot of times people are overstimulated and it's like, yeah, you're constantly being called. People talk about being touched out, but it's not even physically being touched out. There's the aspect of just responsibility. I said, like, you know, as soon as you walk into the house, you know that you have to be responsible for another human being. Even if my children are not physically touching me walking into the house, I'm like, I'm a parent now.
absolutely.
Like it's a lot. So I think people need to think more about different ways to buy their time and don't think it always has to be an hour or 2 hours. It could be 30 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. I have eaten like a, what was it? Like a kind bar in the pantry. And in the 5 minutes I scarfed that down, I genuinely felt better when I came back out the pantry because I was just like, I just need y'all to just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. And I genuinely felt better. So I think we need to think about the micro aspects of it too. It doesn't always have to be 2 hours. It could be something as simple as like you got 15, 20, 30 minutes. Because a lot of parents are burnt out and they're thinking like you need a 3-day weekend or you need like a spa day. And that can be very helpful indulgent wise, but the solution to burnout is not like, it's not a 3-day weekend. It's not really rest. It's like it's revolution. You have to look at your entire system and you have to upend it and figure out what you're going to do. So I think those are some really helpful ways. Because if I don't regulate myself, like I'm a trip.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you said everything you said spot on. And I love what you said too. See, you're helping me validate everything that I wrote because a lot of what you said, I was like, yeah, yep, that's in there, that's in there, that's in the book, that's in the book. And for anyone
Mm-hmm.
watching us, we're celebrating the release of the new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. So if this is resonating with you, I think this can be a really helpful resource for you. But I agree with you. I think there's very high expectations and standards for parents, and I think especially right
Mm-hmm.
now, millennial parents, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, just be one thing. You have to be doing a billion things at one time, and then the standard for how we need to be raising our kids is just drastically different for some of us. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
trying to do this new thing with regard to how I'm raising my kids, how I'm doing my career, how I'm taking care of myself. But doing it all at one time can feel like a lot. But then also, these high expectations lead to this high standard that we often continue to pressure ourselves into reaching, right? And so it's like, okay, where do you find the balance or the middle ground of, you know, yes, you want to parent in a certain way. Yes, you want to do things a little bit differently. Yes, you do have a lot of, you know, goals and desires, yada, yada. But where is the line so that you can stay grounded and stay balanced? And I also like what you said too about how it's not in a 3-day retreat.
Yeah.
It's not in going away for the weekend. Like, yes, those things are nice, but
Mm-hmm.
it back to, okay, well, what does your day to day look like? And what are the things we need to do to shift some things in your systems or just your day to day? I like to think about it like 10 2-minute breaks give you a lot more than, well, I can't take any break because I don't have an hour, right?
Yeah.
Those mini breaks are really, really important. And so one approach, so in my book, I have a whole framework for how a parent who is feeling overwhelmed, overstimulated, burned out, dysregulated, how they can go from feeling that on the regular basis to not to being able to manage how they're feeling a lot better,
Yeah.
right? Because let's be real, we are gonna feel some of this stuff. Like we are gonna continue to be anxious and overwhelmed. Like that's just life at this point. But I think one approach in the book is this very practical approach. So kind of what you were speaking to, how do we look at your day to day and figure out what's missing, what resources need to be added, what support needs to be added, but then also identifying certain triggers that might be in your environment. And when I say triggers, I'm thinking about parenting specifically, but then also there are some people who maybe do have a trauma history or a lot of stressors. What in your environment, whether it's in your parenting or your environment, is challenging for you. And the goal is not to get rid of those things, but rather to anticipate them, to plan for it, and then figure out what do you need so that you can feel differently and feel more supported. So I think, many people do just need some more skills, but then also a better plan for how do I manage and tackle my day to day, but then also the around it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. So I would also state that like balance isn't a real thing. I think Stacey Abrams once mentioned that like she believes in like life Jenga,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that way anyway because like things are gonna fall to the floor and then I'll build them back up, or I might take this block and like chuck it behind a couch or something. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't need this block for a minute. Um, I think one of the biggest things is like every time I have like an issue, uh, I take a minute. I'll be real with you to figure out what contributed to it. My support system helps me so much with this because they're very helpful at letting me know when I'm being unreasonable and when I'm being reasonable. And a lot of times lately, it's been like, oh yeah, you've lost your mind. Because you need to take a break, right? So I'm very blessed to have like an amazing support system. So I check in with them. I messaged you that one time and I was just like, listen, when did C3 get potty trained? Because I'm gonna lose it. Like I feel like I can't wash these sheets anymore, right? So I utilize my support system. Um, and I know that it's very difficult to do this. I don't think therapy is the only route to healing. It can be incredibly helpful. But you can you can identify different prompts or write things down or walk yourself through scenarios that contributed to you snapping in the first place, slowing it down. Because one of the biggest stressors is the fact that we can't slow things down. So we don't get to process what contributed to it. And one thing that's been helping me a lot lately is being in this space of I do feel incredibly overstimulated. I do feel incredibly exhausted. I've been telling myself that no just means not right now. It doesn't mean forever. And that has also taken a lot of ease off of me. I'm feeling a lot of stress to like go, 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 go. But I think it's important to realize that like a lot of times we do all this extra stuff and state that we're driving hard and doing all this stuff for our family and for our kids. But if we don't get the time to actually know them and celebrate them, it doesn't. I mean, it's not really helping them in the first place. So I've been really working on not saying not not right now. I had 2 events that I was going to go to this month, and I was just really exhausted. So I decided not to go to them because I don't think any amount of commitment is worth my health and well-being. Because at the end of the day, what's best for me is going to be what's best for my children, and they deserve like a well-rested, regulated parent.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that, and it definitely would have been worse
Right.
with me going on those trips. Also finding a hobby. Like I had realized for a minute, I read a lot, but the books I read are really heavy
Yeah.
as someone who focuses on mental health and social justice. So me and Brandon read a book together and perfect timing. Me and my friend Leah, she was just like, are you in a place for a light read? And I was like, I am. And she sent me a book. I started like, what is it, crocheting again. Like that helps me. One, it's because it's fun. I like being able to pick out the yarn and the cute patterns. 2, I get to just focus on the
Yep.
knots. And 3, if there's an issue, I just take out the knots, which is not like a thing that you can do with everything in the first place. And then also, honestly, I'll likely be well. I'm seeing my psychologist, and she's been someone I've been with for a minute, like on and off. But checking in with her about the possibility of like I might need to get on anxiolytic medication because like it's just like you mentioned, certain things
Yeah.
aren't modifiable at this point in time, and just noticing how much like I've been incredibly stressed out. We're gonna see like how the techniques work without it, and then if I need medication, then we'll probably start medication, and then we'll kind of go from there. But as someone who's dealt with like the sadder side of things in terms of like adjusting to parenting and being sad, I'm very much in a state of anxiety currently. Like everything is just, my heart is racing more than normal and stuff like that. And I think these are signs that people need to look out for, because even my frustration tolerance is lower. And most of the stuff with my kids, I just be like, I mean, okay, bruh, like
Mm-hmm.
do what works for you. But lately, I have been needing more and more moments of space, which are fine, but needing more moments of space, and just honestly like feeling my heart beating out my chest a lot. So, and seeing my psychologist, I was just like, we're going to work on this, and then we'll see if medication is something we'll go into too. And being comfortable with that, right? Because what's best for you is what's going to be what's best for the children. So if you're dealing with like your sleep is not restful, you're getting the Sunday sads, you're having you're having lower frustration tolerance, you're having more difficulty kind of even connecting with them and being present with them. Um,
Yeah.
Look into other resources. I would also state that group therapy is notoriously less expensive than individual therapy. So just putting that out there. There are also a lot of organizations that have free support groups. I did a 6-week support group with Black Girl Smile, which was free for anyone who signed up. And it was Black women. We talked about stuff like that. I know Boris L. Henson Foundation does stuff like that. Sad Girls Club does stuff like that, right? Like, so if you can't afford individual therapy and you're looking at therapy, look for group therapy. Look at all of these organizations that are dedicated to mental health. They do a lot of free events. Like, use that free game, like use the free game, and even use your resources, right? Like with your book, the best thing about books like yours, and I always find with like when licensed mental health professionals write books, is that tangible tips are in the book, y'all, right? Like, so okay, no, I can't find the therapy, and I don't have the money to afford therapy right now, but I mean, I don't know, remember how much your book is because I pre-ordered it as soon as you said you were selling it, but like like, so I bought that like months ago, but like,
It's
you
a
get the book in
therapy is 17.95. So
17.95.
yeah. And to that point, like you're right. And that's why when I was writing this book, I was thinking about that because we're
Mhm.
talking about parents who are overwhelmed and burnt out and frustrated, and they
Yeah.
have the space right now for
Mhm.
therapy. Therapy could be beneficial, but like some people don't have the resources for that, or some people literally just don't have the time right now. But
Yes.
and because therapy is a commitment, but I wrote this
Yep.
book where I wanted people to be able to read this and say, hey, I can follow this and I can do this for myself. There is literally a set plan in there for how to work with this with yourself. But then also, so I wanted to speak to the second part of the framework, and it's essentially what you're talking about next, that piece of just kind of realizing and reflecting to yourself about how your kids really do need and deserve a well rested, regulated mother.
Yeah.
And so is really just this consciousness around that self-reflection, that self-awareness, like really thinking about what's going on in your experiences and then also what's going on in your life and kind of just piecing it all together. So that second part of the framework is really less tangible and more so like let's just really reflect on what's going on right now, what is happening for me internally. And I think all of us need to do that at some point, because I even had a moment like that where it's like, I know for me, before I became a parent, I was still am very ambitious, very driven.
Mhm.
All these goals and all these things. But then becoming a parent shifted that for me. So I've had to do a lot of self reflection around, okay, there's this adjustment happening for me. Part of it is a grieving process, grieving the loss of who I used to be and who I may not be anymore. And
Yeah.
have to really spend time with yourself and go through that reflection process, because if you don't, I believe it'll come out later. And a lot of times it comes out when your kids are asking for juice and then you're like, "Bruh." But it's really just, oh, actually what's really going on right now for me is something completely different. It has nothing to do with my kids. So I just think that self-reflection piece is so key because there's so much that many of us are battling, tackling, trying to reconcile
Yeah.
emotionally, internally, and we have to spend time with that. We have to be aware of it. We have to understand what that is, because if we don't, it'll come out in our relationships or in our relationship with our children, and we don't want that. So
Yeah, and I would also say sometimes it is the kids because my children reside outside their minds. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, so yeah, sometimes it's me, but like you're asking me for juice at midnight. What's happening, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so sometimes it is them
yeah,
for real. Like sometimes I'm just like, you know what? My son Jaden literally asked me for an orange. I was doing 50 different things, went to peel the orange. I gave him the orange. He chewed it and spit it out on my foot.
girl. Mm-hmm.
So
Sometimes,
sometimes it's like, you know what? The most reasonable person in the world would have flipped the table, right? I remember having a patient who she did this huge lead up to, I just have to say something. I know it's awful. It's terrible. I'm so sorry. Girl, I thought she was about to tell me where a body was. I'm like, I'm about to lose my license. And she said, sometimes I get irritated by my child. And I said, oh, well, yeah, that's because children are irritating. That's because children are irritating, like, and you know what? And the thing is, like, that's developmentally appropriate. Children are meant to be self-centered. Who else should they focus on? They are meant to ask for things. If they don't ask, they're not going to get it. They're meant to be up under you. You're their anchor and the only person they've known their whole life. And I'm sure you get asked this, but I get asked all the time, oh, does being a psychologist make it easier? No, just because I know that this is developmentally appropriate doesn't mean I don't want to like knock myself out and sleep until they're potty trained. Like, I just know that it's normal, right? But yeah, it's also like, yeah, children they're a lot.
really,
They're a lot.
and I
It's exhausting.
like being a psychologist. It feels like makes it worse because I'm aware and yet I still have the feeling. So then I'm mad at myself because I'm like, I get it. I know all the whys and why he's doing this and whatnot, but I'm still annoyed. I'm still frustrated.
Yeah.
So then there's this third part of the framework that you're speaking to, and I love how you keep saying the things that are just kind of in line with what's happening in the book. But the last part of the framework is being realistic. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. So this third part of the framework is like essentially, hey, you've done the work of the practical skills, you've learned new skills, you've implemented them, you
Mm-hmm.
done the internal really trying to figure out where your emotions are coming from, what your emotions are. Now, the last part of this framework is to let the rest of the shit go, because guess what? You are a
Yeah.
human. You are
Yeah.
stressed. You are working on some things, but guess what? You're still going to be frustrated at times. You're still going to make mistakes. Kids are still going to be irritating. It's okay for you to be irritated by your kids. Be honest and let's be real. This journey of parenting is hard. It's never going to be easy.
No.
It's
It's
never.
never going to be
And it's
easy. And I think I'm
no.
sorry.
I was just going to say, and so it's about like just radically accepting like some of this is very very hard, and I'm still making mistakes throughout the process. But guess what? We get to repair things with our kids. We get to apologize now.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we can do to kind of make up for this fact that we're imperfect and we're always going to be imperfect.
And I think it helps to model that because I say I hope to make a mistake in front of at least one mistake in front of my children every day, and like that happens daily. But it's because I really want to normalize like an adult's response to mistakes. Like when I've worked with perfectionists and people pleasers, like that perfectionism is just anxiety with a dress on, honey. But the disguise does not fool me, right? Like it's like
Mhm.
what's the fear? What's wrong? What's the issue with being wrong or not being perfect? Because when you're thinking about this aspect of perfectionism, you're denying yourself humanity. Perfection is not of humanity, right? Like we're fallible. So I want to normalize making mistakes in front of my children so they know that like, oh yeah, grown-ups make mistakes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So it's like, what are we going to do if I make a mistake? Are you going to be an ass or are you going to assist me? You see what I'm saying? Like, what we going to do? Like, we just staring at each other. I made a mistake. I need help. Are you going to assist me? Right? Like, I want my children to realize, even when I'm raise my voice or have issues, of course I feel like trash, but I feel 10 times better after I realized that I acknowledged the issue, I talked to them, I apologized, and I figured out what I was going to do going forward. And I would also say, like, when you guys are dealing with these scenarios, it's always helpful to verbalize it and have your children around when you verbalize it, because the more you talk, the more your children talk. Russell was downstairs and he was getting irritated because he couldn't find something, and he said, I'm about to get frustrated because I can't find it. And I'm just like, and I said, first of all, that is a very good use of that word. So good job. Second of all, I done told you multiple times to locate your cars, and you have 57 cars, so you're gonna have to look for it. I'm not helping you look for it. Like, you know, like, it's your car. I don't know where it is. And then he said, oh, I found it. Or even like when he needs space from his little brother, which is often because his little brother is obsessed with him, he'll walk up the steps, sit on the steps, and close the baby gate because Jaden can't open the baby gate, and he'll say, I need space right now. And he typically only needs like 5 or 10 minutes. Like, he really only needs like 5 or 10 minutes, and then he'll come back down and he says that he's done with having space. But it's because I tell him when I need space, like, oh, I want to be picked up. I need space right now. I'll pick you up in a bit. Like, it's the more you verbalize what's going on, the more likely they're going to have the vocabulary. So making mistakes in front of them and apologizing in front of them and not beating yourself up over the mistakes is going to be helpful for them. Like, mama raised her voice. I am sorry. I should not be raising my voice. I am in a rush, and our agendas are never going to be the same. My child's priority is always going to be fun. My priority is always like safety and getting somewhere on time. He don't care about that at all, you know? So like, even making sure that when I make a mistake, I acknowledge it and I don't dwell on it forever. Like, I also want to do that because that also makes me feel bad. It messes up my emotion regulation and stuff like that. So I think it's really helpful to do that. And I really appreciate the fact that in the book you incorporate a framework, because I think when stuff is too rigid, you can't really see yourself in it. But frameworks are really helpful because they provide you with guidance. You can come up with different scenarios that fit it. And it's good to have like tangible things like that, right? Like, sometimes we'll see stuff on social media and it'll be unrealistic, and it'll be abstract. But good things about books like this is just like, here are examples, here is the framework, here are some concepts, and you can figure out how they fit into your life. Like, you know, the best thing about licensed mental health professional making books is like, we're not on that whole like toxic aspect, like, oh, you know, everything's gonna be sunshines and rainbows. No, like, when we started this live, you said, well, has been good to me so far. Not for me. Not for me. You know, I am fighting for my life, but I also know that like, it's not permanent. But as for right now, it does suck a little bit, and figuring out how I'm going to operate inside the suck. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, okay, so I need to ask for more time. I didn't used to need like 5 breaks a day, but now I do. That's just what it is. How do I incorporate that? I used to be more on top of things, but now I'm stressing out and I'm not able to. And just normalizing that, because I think a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of times we get stuff with parents or colleagues saying that, you know, back in their day it was easier. I'm over here baking my own bread because they're literally trying to poison us with the food. Yeah. You know, like, there's even conveniences that have been taken away from us, right? Like, somebody mentioned there's still free camps. Yeah, but not as many. You know, there may be free camps, but there's not free transportation because the school can't afford it. Everybody's learning to make their own gummy bears because we can't even trust the gummy bears anymore, right? Like, you have to deal with COVID and stuff. So I think it's also, if you want to have good regulation, you have to have a good support system, but you also have to be reasonable and realistic, like you mentioned with this third part of the framework, because it's just like, some stuff, it is going to suck. I try to be very honest with people about like, oh no, we're in a pretty tough phase right now. We got 2 toddlers. They're always on me. They act like they don't even see the man that I created them with. And, you know, like, it's very tough. Yeah. And the way that I deal with that is therapy and using resources and checking in with my support system and walking away when I need to, and just going from there. So I think it's also important for parents to realize that like, everybody has their favorite phase. I have up to a 5-year-old now, and I haven't found my favorite phase yet. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I think my favorite phase is going to be everyone's least favorite phase, which is teenagers, because I loves me. Yes. A just difficult team. Like, I base my whole career off of them. Like, I think that's gonna be like, that is my time.
Like, I'm not fighting for my life like I was a year ago, but I still don't think this is my favorite phase. I think I'm gonna love the teenage years. I cannot wait. Like, I we'll check in when we get there, because I just feel like that we're
gonna because Russell says bruh so much because I say bruh to him. Like I'll be like, bruh, that was excessive. Like what like half the time my face is like, huh? What are we doing? Like, and it's great. It's amazing to be able to watch them interact and like have things and learn things for the first time in life. But it is real exhausting. And I think, as they get older, you get to lessen your responsibility. But I think the thing that really contributes to people being overregulated and I mean, like having sensory overload is the level of responsibility. Like the younger they are, it's really tough. So knowing that like you don't eat unless like I feed you for the 50th time, and I was okay with having sleep for dinner. Like I was okay with like I'm hungry, but I'm going to sleep. I can't do that to you. They're gonna call somebody on me, and then like like so it's just it's the level of responsibility that is necessary. But also realizing that it's exhausting because it feels exhausted. You feel exhausted because it is exhausting. I encourage a lot of parents to put like, I don't know, like justified in front of their feelings, because sometimes we feel like we don't have the right to feel that way because maybe it was easier for our parents and things like that. But that's not the case. Like you feel angry, you justifiably feel angry, and kind of figure out what you're gonna do before then. Use resources like your book, and use them to the fullest extent, y'all. Like write notes, figure out what you need, and then also I would say following people like you, because you put out a lot of free game on your like social media anyway. I think there's way more resources available now than there were for my parents. Like if they knew that they could just log in and like, oh, somebody gave me like 3 tips today about resources or free camp or stuff like that, I think that they would have done a lot better, and they wouldn't have had to a lot of parents parent out of fear, and they focused on obedience rather than respect.
Absolutely.
And obedience builds resentment. Respect is what builds relationships. So I think use the free game afforded to you, like follow your account, you get the book and go from there.
Asking what's the name of the book. The book is Guide to Self-Regulation. It is pinned. And I know we're almost out of time, but yes, everything you said, absolutely. Like I just think I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I'm also glad that there's resources like this book, because I want people to feel validated for how challenging parenting can feel. And I also very deeply understand this desire to have a very deep connection with our kids, all the while knowing that it can be very hard to do when you're overwhelmed, you're frustrated, you're overstimulated. Yeah. That's why I wrote this book, because I understand that. I understand how badly we want to do things well before our kids, but also how hard it is. And so I'm hopeful that this book can help anybody who is going through that and experiencing that, because life is hard. Yeah. And we still have a big job and big responsibility, and we want our kids to want to be with us and talk to us well beyond their childhood years, right? Like we want our kids to be grown and still want to come to us, still feel safe to come to us. And so I really hope that this live helped somebody today, but then also you can pre-order your copy of the book and you'll get it next week.
Yeah, it's right on time for me. Like I'm having a difficult time, and I think it's really just like you mentioned. Like I saw this post that someone was like, "You only have 18 summers with your kids," and I'm like, maybe you only have 18 summers with your kid because you don't treat your child the way you're supposed to treat them. But like, I got plenty of summers with my baby. That tells me more about you. Like, how are you parenting? Because let me tell you something. I be up under my mom every time I see her. Like, what's up, boo? What you doing? Okay, I'll call you in 10 minutes. Like, don't believe that, y'all. Like, you only have 18 summers. Yeah, if you treat your children terribly. And honestly, you barely deserve those 18 summers if that's how you're going to treat them. You're not owed a relationship with your child, right? Like, I don't remember any of us submitting a request form to be here. And trying to build a healthy and happy relationship with your child, realize that starts with building a healthy and happy relationship with yourself. Like, I always tell parents, especially Black parents, like, the only way you can center the humanity of your Black child or your children is centering the humanity in yourself. Being a parent teaches me more about me than it does about my children, right? So it's just like you want to come up with all these things. You want to make sure they're in the top schools, and you want to make sure they're getting all this organic food and stuff like that. You also need to make sure that you learn how to apologize to them, and you normalize mistakes, and you spend time with them and you have conversations with them and you allow them to disagree with you and you just let them talk without providing them with lessons, like that whole, don't believe that you only have 18 summers with your children. You don't. You have way more than that. You just need to realize that, like, most of the time they just want gummy bears and screen time, like the so, like, you know what I'm saying, like it's way better to just focus on like what's best for me. What's best for me is going to be what's best for my child. So like I don't care if I am drinking tea hot or I'm just staring at the wall for 15 minutes. That's what needs to be done so that I can be present for them. And I think that's what most parents need to remind themselves of, is just like, oh, is this too indulgent? Or, oh, should I be downstairs with them? Even though like the thought of watching another, show is going to drive me nuts. No, because you being able to take a minute and come back to them fully rested, and even just having 30 minutes, even if it's just scrolling on your phone, that's what they deserve. They deserve you being able to come back and be fully present with them. So I just always remind yourself of that. Sometimes people will be like, oh, my child, I need to be with them 24/7. Half the time they don't even want us in their face like that. Like,
They don't.
no. Like, my child is, depending on the time, like my kids are always up under me, but like sometimes it'll just be like, they'll look at me like, did you have a question? Or like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? but just remember that, like, use the resources, use the book, and what's best for you is what's going to be best for your child. Perfectionism is not of humanity. Like, normalize that so your children don't have to think that they have to be perfectionists. People are worried about that, and it's just like, well, if you were afraid of making mistakes, they are going to be afraid of making mistakes, right? Like,
Yep.
why wouldn't they?
Yep. Yep. So, yes. And I think the last thing I will end on, I often get this question about, well, how do I teach my kids to regulate their emotions? And how do I teach my kids to, have healthy boundaries? And how do I teach my kids to, not try to be perfect? It all starts with you. And so, modeling all this stuff, everything that we talked about today is so beneficial for you, but even more so for your kid, because they watch you. They're always watching. They're listening to us. So the more that you start to work on these things for yourself, the better your child will be able to internalize and then also do them for themselves, because they have seen it through you. You're modeling for them every single day. And so I'm excited for this book to be a resource for all of you, to go on you with your journey. Again, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. You can order it now. The book releases next Tuesday on June 18th. So I'm excited for everybody to get their copy and then hopefully connect with me and let me know what you think about it when you get it.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much for having me. What you just said reminded me of, you did this post a while back, like your child is able to say no to you. And people just, I will never forget, like, the comments, and people like lost their mind. And I was cracking up because I was just like, your children, like, how are you going to teach your children consent if they're never allowed to say no to you? I tell the story all the time. It had to be a smooth, like, 3-4 months. It felt like forever that I did not get a kiss from my child, because every time I asked him, because I always asked him if I could have a kiss, he would say no. And I was just like, okay. And eventually he was cool again, but he went through a period where he just like did not want kisses. And I always ask, like, I ask if I can give him a kiss. I ask him if I can give him a hug. I ask him if I can take his pictures. And for a while he was just like not having it. But I want him to understand that his voice matters, and we can't expect them to understand consent. And not only just consent, like enthusiastic consent, because you have a boy and a girl. I have 2 boys. And the other day, Brandon was playing with Russell, and Russell said, "Stop!" And he was still playing with him. And he said, "Mama, Dada he didn't stop." And I was like, "Well, let me tell you something." I said, whether he's like, sometimes he'll laugh and say stop, and I stop, because it's just like, I don't want you to think, it doesn't matter if you're joking. It doesn't matter if like you're giggling. The last thing I'm going to do in rearing 2, I'm just assuming they identify as boys, is not let them understand like you need enthusiastic yeses. So if it's just like, oh yeah, sure, no, that's a no. And even if they're joking or if they're smiling, I don't care. If they say stop, that's it. So as soon as like normalizing that, like he says like, "Oh, stop, mom," and I stop. He's like, "What? You told me to stop."
Yep. Stop means stop.
Stop
No.
means stop, especially with two young men. Heck no. I don't listen.
Yep. It's time.
I'm not playing these games.
And with my son, I've taught him that. And so he'll say, Mommy, is no. I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely stop means
No
stop.
means no.
It,
Stop means stop. Like, don't,
yeah.
yep. And Eden. She's just so cute. I'm gonna be distracted real quick, but like she's so freaking cute. Like I feel like she's like all hair.
Look, today, so I gave her 4 ponytails today, and I undid them so they were all out. And I used those rubber bands. Some of y'all probably know, like when they touch the oil, they pop. So I sent her with 4 ponytails today.
Mm-hmm.
Pick her up, all of them popped. So all her hair was just out. And I was like, girl, all this hair. She's just literally all hair.
Oh my gosh. Every single time I like you post her, I'm just like, nope, no. Like every time you post her, I message you like, girl, please stop. Like, please. Like I can't do it.
I'm glad she was my last one. Today she saw me eating at the dinner table because everybody had finished and I was still sitting there. She came over, she was like, I'm gonna come over here and be with my girl. And then she gave me a like, I am your girl, you my girl too. You my girl too.
My gosh. Meanwhile, I'm over here trying to explain to my son that I don't have a penis and he doesn't believe me. You know what I'm saying? Like pray for me.
I'm sending thoughts and prayers because
Oh my God. He said, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. I don't. God.
you'll understand one day.
They love those things, man. Like it's just like you just can't possibly fathom that I don't have one of those things. Chill.
Because it's so
No,
like why would how could you not, I guess.
it's ridiculous, yo. I'm just like, but yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for the time. I know how busy you are, girl, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really do. And again, for anyone who is wondering, this book, I saw one more question, and this will be the last thing I say.
Yeah.
So self-regulation is for parents or children. This book is for parents, but also remember, the more that you do this stuff, your children will benefit because they get a better version of you, but they also get to learn skills through you. So it's primarily for parents, but children absolutely benefit because they get a better parent from it. So I hope you all get to order your copies. Link in my bio to do that, but also it's on Amazon, it's Target, any major books retail, you can find this. So just get it. Just get your book. But thank you, Raquel. I appreciate it. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Amber.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.